Hey everyone, Dr. Kennard here with 420 Dr. Tomfoolery, normal human. I think that's a demotion somehow, Dr. Tomfoolery.
Whoa.
And I don't think that's true from our interactions together, sir. You are, I think that title is not factually correct. Yes, I don't even know where to begin. I'll begin at the story. All right, so this is me. This is what happened on Friday at 8:30 at night. 8:30 at night. Now I'm supposed to be working on Sunday night, right? I got a phone call from my house manager, and she just says there's an issue with HR, and there's some information, and you have to call them up on Monday morning to resolve everything. And I'm going, great. I'm definitely not getting flashback from the last thing, right? So I go, okay, I'm gonna just play it cool as I can be, and my girlfriend had to do a couple of times. It isn't your fault, Andy. And so threw some aspirin down my stomach, threw some aspirin down before I went back to sleep. Got up at around 6 because I couldn't sleep upstairs with the girlfriend. Once I wake up, I have to go downstairs to sleep on the couch, basically. That's how I can get myself back to sleep the easiest. So I woke up with the cat getting its automated breakfast because it has an automated feeder. So that woke me up at 6, and I still felt like crap. And here I am. And my girlfriend just said, yeah, I thought I felt a little feverish last night myself. It's like, great. So I took my temperature, and I think I'm within the normal distribution for shitty thermometers, right? Whenever you have a shitty thermometer, you're thinking, wow, maybe 97.5 is normal, even though it maybe because you may not know this, but I have hypochondriac tendencies. So now I'm trying to figure out, is this just me being a hypochondriac? Or me,
Do I really feel hot? Do I really?
I feel hot.
I've been dealing with that too. Like, since like COVID started, I'm like, I feel an itch in the back of my throat. Oh no. Like how far you can take some stuff and you don't even really have it.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, and of course, we went up to see my relatives over the weekend, right, on Saturday. So that's like it's 5-hour drive up, 5-hour drive back, and so we're eating dinner in a restaurant. No one's there. It's off time, so I felt comfortable being inside, and I like my brother. My half brother, one of my half brothers, and I like my half brother's wife. It was their anniversary, actually, their 1-year anniversary. And she's like, oh, yeah, I'm not vaccinated. And I'm like, and what I didn't do is get into an argument, because it started getting into the beginning stages of an argument. And I'm like, oh, I'm not doing this here. This is not what I do. This is not what I'm going to do. Yeah. So that's me.
Yeah.
That's why there wasn't a show at 9 o'clock this morning, and that's why I'm here right now.
Right on.
I'll give you a pass.
Thank you. So,
So you still don't know if you have the job or not.
I don't, dude. What I do know. So here it is, right? I did 2 days of orientation last week, right? I did 2 days of orientation. And I'm not trying to think that that's where I could have gotten sick, right? I'm trying not to think about that, because I told you about the dick nosing story. And, yes. And it's like, well, yeah. So I'm trying not to think about that. And
was it paid orientation?
Oh, yeah, it's paid, dude. So at least I got some time. The girlfriend goes, did you tell him about the visit with the unvaccinated people? Yes, the girlfriend. We just talked about that. About how it's good about not getting into an argument with people, which is a skill for me, apparently. That's a skill, not getting into an argument.
Yeah,
you got to choose your battles,
Oh, yeah.
Patience can come in handy at times.
Yep, I decided I was just, because my kids were there too, right? My kids were there too, and I don't want them to see me start mixing it up, with relatives I barely even know. So,
here, kids, let me show you how to rage. Let me give you the example of a lifetime.
Gonna traumatize you just right.
Yeah, there are some families where that's the normal for family gatherings.
Oh yeah. So that was my weekend, everyone. That brings us from Friday to now. This is from Friday to now. That pretty much all the. I don't know what you've been up to over the weekend. If anything exciting's happened to you, might have any news.
I've been making progress.
Yeah. Okay, so you jumped. You were jumpy a bit there, but I heard I made progress, which is positive, and I will commend you on whatever progress you made. Nope.
Yeah, I'm working on the media. We're recording again.
He's recording.
No, we're working on a recording. Thank you.
Yeah, you're still roboting.
Let me tell you about the other thing about taking my.
I'm gonna jump out just for a moment.
Okay, dude.
You know, by the way it crackles, it almost sounds audio. Because though his video does sort of jump too, so
yeah, his video and his audio jumped at the same time.
Well, in terms of my weekend, I got a haircut yesterday.
Really? Do we have a look? I mean, you have a lot of. I mean, from our non-avatar interactions, you are a person blessed with hair, my friend. So do we get a look at the trimmed Dr. Tomfoolery?
I would have to go to my other computer that actually has a camera.
Yeah.
The reason why I do the avatar all the time is because the computer I use normally doesn't have any camera.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe later. Maybe another day.
Yeah, maybe tomorrow.
D. Parks saying in the chat, my 16-year-old managed to get both a sinus infection and a double ear infection at the same time. So that's lovely, D.
Jesus Christ.
That sounds like shit right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I did much at all on the weekend, to be honest. If I did, I'm struggling to remember it. So
maybe that indicates you did quite. Maybe that indicates you had quite a weekend.
Maybe.
Yeah, well,
maybe.
Just general, yard work and life stuff.
Work.
I did see. It wasn't the actual TikTok. It was someone responding to the TikTok. I don't know if anyone else has seen it, but it was two young, so sort of teenage, sort of maybe older teenage, 16, 17 looking sisters doing some TikTok dance in front of their mother's open wake.
Wow.
As like one last TikTok. Maybe they did TikToks with their mum and stuff, which is what I first thought. But then as the person that was responding pointed out, it's like, yeah, that's cool. But what about the rest of the people sitting in the funeral watching these two young ones go out and do a TikTok? Oh, I don't know how I feel about it. It's odd.
Yeah, that's an interesting artistic choice.
Yeah, they do say we all grieve in our own way, I don't know.
They could have done a Weekend at Bernie's style with the TikTok dance.
Good point, Dr. Tomfoolery. It could always be worse. It could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
I think that was probably the most memorable thing from my weekend.
I just read that Chris Rock has COVID, the comedian. Yeah. He tweeted out he got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, so he's vaccinated, but he's still got a breakthrough infection, and it is supposedly knocked him on his ass. And at least he is telling people, hey, maybe you should get the vaccine.
Yeah, I think he's sort of always been pro-vaccine, though.
Yeah. He's not he's not like Nicki Minaj, for an example, and I cannot even that.
No, no, she's something else, isn't she?
She is. And if you don't know who we're talking about, Nicki Minaj, the singer, pop star, she said, what was it, a couple of days ago, that her cousin's friend in Trinidad, I think, got swollen testicles due to the COVID-19 vaccine, and that's why his fiance dumped him. I believe that's the entire story from Miss Minaj.
Minaj's story doesn't top Paul Camish's.
No, it doesn't. It does not. Yeah. It did not.
I never got to tell you my exploding testicle story.
No, man.
It's not me. It never happened to me. But when I was, I think it was probably about 12 or 13, and a whole bunch of us were out, we call the bush, riding BMXs, making jumps and stuff. And this one kid hit this. I'm just trying to think why. I think he was the first one to try this particular jump, and it was quite steep. And we were all sort of yelling and geeing him up, and so he's hit it flat stick. And this kid flew, like he went high.
Right.
And when he landed so that his crotch landed on the headstock of the handlebars, so that square bit. And he just landed really hard and went straight down and just stayed there. And we pulled the bike away, and when we eventually got him up, he had his hand there, and he pulled his hand away, and his testicle, his bare testicle, was in his hand, still attached up inside him.
No.
But he looked at it. We all looked at it. He looked at it. He looked at us. He started laughing, and then crying, and then laughing.
So being out in the bush could mean that you were far, far away from any services.
It was probably, there was no mobile phones back then. Right. So this was, you have to get to somewhere. So this poor kid carried his testicle back. And no one even offered to push his bike. He had his bike in one hand and his testicle in the other. And when we saw him next time, I asked him about it, and he said the main thing was, the main pain was the stinging of the testicle in his hand. He said it was like the sweat and just whatever it was, he could feel. The testicle actually had nerves or whatever. It's like, are you kidding me?
Wow, dude, that's crazy.
I don't know if he got to keep the testicle either.
You can do a whole channel, I think, something about tales, and this could sound really raunchy, but it'd just be Australians, like Tales from the Bush, right? about life gone wrong.
Yeah.
Kendra has kept something that I don't know what to really think about it. I'm like, she has the umbilical cords from our kids. It's like she's kept other small things like their first haircut. She's got a little, I don't know, like to me, I'm like, throw stuff away, put it in the compost pile. Like,
well,
I'm very unsentimental about things.
It's totally normal.
That is?
But both
weird.
Mothers of my children have kept the umbilical cords. These disgusting, dried up little black Looks like the little black end of a banana.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Why are you keeping that? These women who want to take the placenta home, and
Oh, don't go there, Sam. Don't. No, yeah. There's no reason for that. I'm having a rough enough morning already.
Tobin started it.
I can handle the testicle in the hand story, but I don't know if I can go there.
Yeah, it was Sammy first. That was Sammy first.
Well, I wanted to say about the bush. I would never let my kids go off and play in the bush like my parents let us. I don't know how they let us. I don't know how we survived.
Yep.
And there's no way I would let my children.
Yeah,
definitely. I know what's out there. Like, I know how many ways I nearly died.
How you doing, Dave?
Dave.
You're silenced.
Hey, Dave.
Dave has technical issues right now. He's working on his audio. Yeah, nothing. Dave.
There we are.
Hey.
Hey,
How
I
you
can
doing?
hear you.
I'm doing well. I was just going to say, I think the fact of the matter is a lot of kids did die back then out in the woods. You know,
Oh, yeah.
You're right.
like,
yeah.
let's face
You're
it,
right.
you know, if your kids fell off a cliff or got eaten by a bear or got washed down a river, that's the end.
Yeah, that's just the cost of doing business. That's all.
You usually had 5 or 6 more a day.
That's
Right.
exactly right. That's what they did back in the day when they were trying to staff a farm with family. They'd have 9 kids, and if a bull kicked one in the head and it died, they had 8 more.
A friend of mine was going through Catholic pre-marriage counseling. I guess that's a thing. And he was telling me this one question, because they go through these little vignettes, these questions. The priest talks to you and says, "Hey, if you have a child, and if both your wife and your child are drowning, but you can only save one, which one are you supposed to save?" And by the way, there's a right answer.
You save your wife because she can make another child.
Bam, Dave, right from downtown. You can always make more.
It's called a do-over.
What if you don't like your wife?
Well, the chances are she's having kids with someone else.
Or you like your kids more.
Well, I think on planet Earth,
That's not me. I'm not saying I'm in that situation. I'm just posing hypotheticals.
I think most ethical ethicists would probably say you should save your kid. Right.
Well, no, there's more. It's actually interesting that you brought that up, because there's actually a formula behind this, and what it costs to raise a human being to 30 years old and what it costs to raise a human being to 8 years old are drastically different numbers.
Yes.
And that's not just cost in dollars and cents. That's cost in time and effort and education and experience and all those things. A person at 30 years old is far more valuable than an 8-year-old.
So I like your economic argument for letting the kid drown.
It's the very analytical, detached from reality.
Oh, right.
Can I say thank fucking fictitious God Dave doesn't have any children?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I have the spreadsheet on which one I'm going to save. Especially if you have multiple kids.
It's like, kids, I've done the numbers.
Wait. You can't
One of
tell
you has
the
to
kids
go.
what the numbers are.
Well, I got to tell
No,
you,
you just tell them you've done the numbers.
Yes.
based on the previous report cards, this is where you stand right now. I'm going to give you your gross scores.
You have to factor into that. Like, okay, let's say you could save you have 3 kids and a wife, and you have 2 arms, so you can save 2 of them, right? So you definitely save the wife, highest on the list. But which kid do you grab?
Dave, you've never been married, have you?
Do you grab the...
No kids have never been married. That's why you're saying these things, Dave.
So do you grab the oldest kid because it has the greatest investment in it? Or if that's the one who's a little bit off, who, like, broods in their room and sleeps in their closet, and maybe
There's so many variables that would go into this. Like actually, to like be able to go, oh yeah, I would save this one or that one, but holy
I
shit.
think there's a pretty generic answer though that I would think most people would automatically come up with, because I don't think money and things should really come into the equation if you're like drowning.
I didn't mean
and in all your families there, it's like shit. Which one's going to cost me the least?
No, I mean which one has the greatest investment of time, effort, education, the whole thing, not just financially, because they're all going to equal out financially in the end anyway. Fairly well. Okay. Having not had kids and not put any of them through college or university, there are going to be differences, but there's also going to be benefits to those costs later on. So,
I think where I'm taking issue, Dave, is that whilst you're in this drastic scenario, you're considering how this will play out for you.
Yes. Yeah,
More than I would be like, just drown me, kids, climb on me, say like, I've got two arms and two legs, not just two arms. I'd figure out a way.
Yeah, maybe you should carry like some dice with you, right? To totally randomize, the situation.
Well, I should either go out and come in again as a different guy, or I can go total like crazy guy with the cat on his lap going.
Little do we know that's the stuffed doll that survived. No, Gerbot. No,
I hate Mondays.
No one, Gerbot.
No. No, I was obviously speaking from a very dry perspective of things like that don't go through your head. It's the nearest one to you that you save, obviously. But it's the whole.
Well, I actually had a different answer to that. That's a better answer. That's probably the best answer, Dave. But I was thinking the youngest, and it's that thing that you always hear, and I guess it's even a bit cliche, but they've had the least life. The oldest person's had the most life. That if it's a young person, an old person, everyone says you let the old person die because
and the younger
had a life
is probably more vulnerable. If you're all sitting there trying to like swim, like how is this hypothetical? Like we're all in the water and treading water.
Now hold on. If you're talking a difference between a child, a youth, an adult, and someone who is elderly, obviously the elderly person would probably push you away from saving them or grab one of the children and throw them at you because they understand what that is, right? Everybody has, once you hit about 45, you start thinking about end of life plans, right? So
I got to tell you, the difference between I think an 18-year-old, at least in my own mind, and a 6-year-old is at some point an 18-year-old, and part of being an adult is that this is the ticket you get. I mean, I'm sorry, it's shitty, but there's a certain amount of this is the burden of adulthood. I hate, and I got a phone call and it might be work, so I have to fucking answer this question, everyone. I have to answer.
Okay, you go do that.
Because there's work stuff going on at this end. I'll be right back.
I was going to say, if you have someone who is 18 years old, 20 years old, and you're saving them, they should probably be saving themselves or saving you or saving one of the other children and themselves, right? At that point. What I was speaking about is like, a baby, a toddler, and a child, and a wife, right?
It all depends on what you're saving them from, of course, because any age range could be in a position where they are unable to be saved by themselves.
Well, yeah, that's
what happened, Andy.
I don't want to get past this dead child thing that we're talking about right now. I will talk about what just happened, But I do want to talk about where are we on this trolley thought experiment?
Exactly. It's the trolley experiment in a different perspective.
It is a trolley experiment, right? I mean,
Mm.
so where are we in the discussion?
I know. Just to divert for 1 second, have you seen the trolley experiment with the young children where they show the trolley and the Barbies?
The funny trolley experiment I saw was that, and we all know what the trolley experiment is, right? It's this hypothetical about how morality works, how we think about morality. And so there's these two tracks, and basically you have to sacrifice one person or one track.
The train is going down one track for sure.
Right. So there is basically a jar of fertilized eggs, embryos, human embryos, like 1,000 of them, right, in a jar on one track. And then there's one toddler on the other track. So you either get to save the embryos, the fertilized embryos, or you get to save the toddler. Now then, which one do you sacrifice?
Oh, I'm sacrificing the 1,000 embryos. Save the toddler.
It's pretty easy for me.
Yeah, it seems pretty easy when you don't have superstition getting in the way.
Now, the one that I saw had, I forget what it was. They did several different experiments with kids, and it was like a puppy dog on one side and then 4 Barbies on the other. And the kids just really loved smashing those trains into those Barbies. They really did. They had no idea about them. Like, it's obvious that morality is not written on your heart by God, because these children didn't have a common perspective of what morality was or how to react in that situation. And it was a really telling thing to know that all they were interested in is seeing, something exciting and fun and having a good time while they were there. They didn't,
Have you seen?
Yeah, the example I liked seeing was where they had like the $1 on one track and then $5 on the other.
Yeah.
And the kid went and picked up the $1 and put it on the track with the other ones, and then ran over all 6.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That was brilliant. Hey, you missed one. I fixed it for you.
It might have been a Mythbusters episode, but something along those lines, and they did the trolley experiment. So they set up this big, complicated scenario where someone who thought they were just a reporter, or they were a reporter there to report, got left in this, I don't know what you call it, little office, but it had all the switches, a control room. Yeah, the big monitors and all the switches and everything. And the guy was like, just wait there, I'll be right back. And they're watching the monitors and they see the trains, and there's 5 workmen on one and 1 workman on the other. And it was set up that they knew how to switch the lines because the conversation just happened to say that. And in this situation, you watch them panic, and they did 10 people. 9 of them did nothing.
Yes.
Because they don't want to accept responsibility for the action.
Well, this is the interesting thing about the different systems that we have working around in our brains. There's the abstract, and we're just going to call this the Simply Secular Dave system right now about the spreadsheets. This is the Simply Secular Dave abstraction about what to do. And then there's maybe the Dr. Kennard, I'm going to pull the trigger. And I don't think Dave would have any problem pulling the trigger. Don't get me wrong. That's not your problem, Dave. But this is just basically a simple way to discuss the 2 basic systems we have about thinking about, let's say, wisdom, like the abstraction, and then the virtue, actually doing it or executing on it. And most people are pussies, to tell you the truth. Most people just don't want to execute.
Well, they freeze because like they're when you're confronted with an option of good or bad, for the most part, 90% of people choose the good option. But when you're confronted with the option of horrible or catastrophic, people freeze. They don't want to make that. They don't understand. They don't push through that decision-making process.
Yeah.
Right. Because thinking is a process. And if, there's so many conversations that I have left, and I've been like, oh, I wish I would have said this. This would have been more better. But like when you have time to think about it, you got time to think about it. You can put all the pieces together. But when you're in the moment, yeah, it can be. Some people just freeze up, and there's others that take immediate action.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're right about that, Tobin, because there's the fight, the freeze, and the fight, flight, or freeze. So it's your basic reactions. It's either fight, flight, or freeze. And sociopaths, people who look at people as things can typically, make decisions a lot better in the pocket. So that you have these benign, sociopaths who are out there who are in these high risk jobs, like EMTs maybe, or surgeons, people that don't, or you can make an argument that the reason why Donald Trump never seemed to have aged in the 4 years in the White House is that he never cared. He never cared on a deep level that, let's say, a normal person who is burdened with empathy,
Right.
has.
Right. People crack under different pressures. Some people can be a freaking waitress and hear 10 different things being told to them and grab each and every one of those ideas or the things that people are asking of them and be able to execute each 10 item. And then, like me, if I try to do that, if I try to be a waiter, dude, I break. I'm like, y'all can have this back. Here's my apron. Here's, the little bit of change I got. I can't function under that type of pressure. But you put me on stage and I can be relaxed and just play music.
Yeah. Danny Elfman, who is the composer who did the Simpsons theme, as well as a variety of other scores. He tried being a waiter for a while, and he just said, I just suck at it. Never was good at it.
Yeah, that's the kind of personality that is, you get what I give you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I could never do any sort of servery jobs. I can't serve people. I don't like them, so I can't be subservient. But I did really, really well in sales.
Oh, really? Huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I did sort of until I moved into this field.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was, I've been pretty good about, being in the pocket if a crisis happens. I usually have a decent head in being able to make a decision in the moment.
I've had a few moments happen to me that have made me realize that I am one of those people. Like, I've actually saved somebody's life. I have done the CPR. I've got air back into somebody's lungs before.
Oh, yeah.
I've got people to emergency rooms. I've seen accidents happen, and I just stay calm and, apply pressure and whatnot and get them in the car and get them where we're going.
My girlfriend and I were about to hit our 3-year anniversary, and she knows that my grandfather died right in front of me, basically, when I was like 19 years old. She didn't know I did CPR, so we had a whole discussion. I got to tell her that lovely story yesterday. Such a fun weekend for Andy, I tell you. It's been a great ride.
Me and my partner are polar opposites in times of crisis. One particular time, my son had really bad seizure and seized for upwards of 45 minutes, and we were traveling when it started, and my partner had a broken arm at the time, so couldn't drive, but ended up having to drive because I had to get in the back seat and have him in the prone position, and ambulances refused to stop on the freeway, so we had to get off the freeway. We pulled into a service station, and I remember just holding him and keeping his checking his air and keeping his mouth clear and stuff, while his mother was just literally just doing loops of the service station, like screaming hysterically, didn't know what to do, which I don't blame her, and that's what I thought I would be like. But since then, the several situations I've been in that were pretty, we'll say, life-threatening, completely calm, like eerily calm.
Yeah, there's
And
there's a calmness that I found too. Like when I got held up at gunpoint, which I when I was doing stand up, I had this 10-minute bit on it. It's but right there, the calmness just comes down. I asked the guy if he had a gun. The whole thing. The whole. I guess I'm being held up now. There's kind of like this disassociation in a way, right? There's a disassociation when you're in the at least what I found, in that and you don't realize.
And I think if you don't dissociate too much, if you can do it enough to dissociate from the horror of whatever's happening, but still be present, then you're right, really.
Yeah.
But
and it is
it's
really
a lot
the best
easier
way
said
to
than
be.
done.
Being calm in those really dicey situations is like if you can keep your heart rate down.
Yeah.
You're not using a lot of oxygen. There's you can handle a situation.
You're right. You're spot on with that, Tobin. There's a Malcolm Gladwell book called Blink, who was out, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago. And one of the causes of police violence or violence in general is that once your heart rate goes up to a certain point, once it goes over, you have less ability to think out your actions rationally.
It inhibits your cognitive functions, I believe they call it.
And you're far more willing to press to pull the trigger, especially if you have a gun in your hands already. And it's the same thing. Actually, the statistics are funny because you would think that having 2 cops presently would lower the chances for violence, but it doesn't.
No.
If there are 2 cops,
I bet you
there's more.
Shit. I could totally see how 2 cops being together, 2 people. I mean, I think of me and my best friends. I'd see one do something that was pretty ballsy, and then I'd be like, oh, well, I got to outdo them now. There's can be this competitiveness between us.
Yeah. So if you got more, so if you only have 1 cop there, then less, which is strange. It seems like there would be, intuitively, you would think 1 cop alone would be more likely to commit violence, but that's not true.
The other thing you have to remember is often if there's more than 1 cop there, there's more than 1 suspect there. And I remember being pulled over on the side of the I-5 in a felony stop with a cop pointing a shotgun at my back and thinking to myself, I hope none of my friends sneezes really hard right now, because if somebody starts unloading guns into the backs of people on the side of the road, it's a lot easier to explain why there's 4 dead guys instead of explaining by there's 1 dead guy and 3 guys who witnessed it.
Right. Yeah. Back in the day, right? Years ago, there would always be 2 cops in a patrol car, right?
Yeah.
Adam 12 kind of stuff. And I would wager that I just got an email from Patreon saying that Ox just became a $1 patron. Thank you, Ox, wherever you are. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Can I speak to Gerbot in the chat? In terms of being approachable, a lot of atheists are very recent converts who have something like religious departure trauma syndrome. Absolutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. But it's not well, I guess you could call it religious departure, but it's not so much the departure that's the trauma. Can I just say that? And the anger doesn't come from leaving God and we're now godless or something to that effect, if that's what's being implied there. It is, we are angry that we were fucking duped I'm looking at my microphone.
Yeah.
Isn't that right, microphone? We were fucking duped for so long. And we're angry at ourselves that we fell for it. We're angry at the people who lied to us. We're angry at our families who are still in it.
I
It's
feel
I tell
silly.
you,
I feel silly. Like, there's some of the things that I thought were true, and I totally made them up. And I actually like really thought these things. I thought I was special in some kind of way. I don't know. That's the least little bit of harm that comes from it, really.
The
All
thing
right,
that
so,
got me,
well, I just want to point out that we're not going to debate you, right? So this is how people get banned off the channel.
the thing that got me on my my deconversion was kind of mild and slow, but the thing that bothered me the most was the betrayal of the people who I had known my entire life, who were knowingly telling me these false things. And it took me a long time to understand that some of these people had really shitty epistemology and actually believed them. Some of them already knew that they were false, but they were in a position with the organization that they were compelled to tell me those things. And the people who flat out knew it was wrong and continued to toe the line are the ones that I resented the most. And that's where the anger comes from.
Yeah.
So back on to killing babies.
Back to killing babies. That's what I really.
Before we do go back to the baby killing, I just want to say to John, I agree. I'm not angry anymore. And I think most atheists go through that anger, then quickly do get over it. It's just, it's like an initial reaction, I think, and natural progression.
I think out of all, and I am an advocate for anger. Let me be blunt, but there are things far more important to be angry about than, fictitious idols, right? In and of themselves. I mean, the country here in the States, at least, we almost fell into fascism like just a little while ago. There's still a good chance that the country falls into fascism. There's all social economic problems to be angry about. That's where I would rather. That's where my anger naturally gravitates to.
Yeah.
I definitely think taking aim on that is yes, because people are making decisions and voting stuff in that is affecting all of us.
Yeah. And once again, it's actually more of an issue for me about fascism in general and how, it has, and Christianity is a problem for me, don't get me wrong, but the main issue, it's about, social economic stuff. It's about Trumpism, MAGA-ism, the great wealth disparity that brings those two things, manifests those things into our society. Those are the things that I really spend most of my time talking about.
Yeah, for me, some of the more annoying aspects, like with my mother, like just this weekend, for instance, the passive aggressiveness of some of the conversations that I've had with her about, like, she just moved recently and starting a new church and getting into the passive aggressiveness of me not going to church is kind of frustrating at times, where it just bubbles up at times with her and she just feels that she needs to start bringing it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I get it's not too late, Sam. Jehovah still loves you.
I mean, a lot of the time, and this is what I've told my kids, is that, people will most of the time, people will treat you in the way that you pretty much put down firm boundaries, right? So if you demand people to treat you with respect, most of the time you will get respect back. Most of the time. So when people start, like I said, I was at my family's little luncheon, right? And one of my, sister-in-laws, is unvaccinated. I said my piece and stopped right there. Yeah. And even now I get angry about it.
Yeah. That's fair enough.
And
And you know what? If they
and
don't respect you, there's nothing wrong with being like, you know what? There's plenty of space over here. I'm gonna go do me right
Yeah.
over there.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, in the conversation with my mother this weekend, was like she specifically was like talking about going to church, and then was like brought up the fundraiser I had on Facebook of like I'm not going to donate to that fundraiser. I was like, I never asked you to. It's just something that gets shared on my thing because I did it for the Facebook thing.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of resources out there now that there weren't 10 years ago,
Oh, yeah.
where an atheist or somebody who's like a questioning theist, like if you could look back and write a manual on knowing what you know today, how would you want to have been approached? What would you want somebody to say to you? What would you have preferred your interactions be like when you were just coming up to the tipping point of, I really need to look at this belief and investigate it? And we
I
need
would want
more.
somebody. I have thought about that very question, Dave, and
Yeah.
I would want that person. I would want me to treat myself very sternly, talk very clearly, and tell them, "Hey, time is ticking. You need to start moving and making some things happen."
And then encompassed in that, you also need to take the next step and say, when you get to the point where you have questioned your way to the point where you're on the downhill, let's call it, or maybe we'll call it the uphill. If you're in Christianity, you're in the gutter and you start walking up the hill out. So when you get to that point and you hit that atheist angry, because most people do. I was lied to by somebody who's known my family my whole life. I was lied to by my family. I was lied to by, and you get that whole lied to and deceived and betrayed. And you need to get into a group where you can discuss and understand. Some of those people believed and still believe and will believe till the day they die. And they will always want you to be saved because they're still in that religion. And some people are questioning just like you, and you being angry with them isn't going to bring them along with you. It's going to push them away. And there are some people who are on the outside, but for whatever reasons, maybe they work for the church and they need to get into something like the Clergy Project, where, where they can be anonymous, but have some clarity and understanding and move to the next step. But being angry and being angry at the wrong people and you can be angry at yourself for saying, hey, I fell for this, but you got to let that go pretty quick. But your interactions with the people around you need to be scaled way the F back, because you can't just go out there and start dropping bombs on people day after day after day and expect them to respect you.
And I think it's all about messaging, right? Because what you just said about godlessness and atheism can be talked about in any variety of ways, whether you're talking about or any topic. Like, I know that I can pop off at certain times, here in this space or in my personal life, like about weird stuff too. I was walking past a Nike store, and they're talking about there was a poster saying that they support rights, right? And it was a black couple, and I turned to my girlfriend and her friend who was there, and it's like, they support rights, they just don't support workers' rights. I'm going to wager off the top of my head. And so, yeah, I can pop off about weird things like that, and it can grind on the people around me. I have to learn how to hold that back.
Yeah, I mess up movies for Kendra all the time because I get way too like, that can't happen. What are they doing? Like, I ask too many questions during movies. Like,
a thing that really grinds on me is my mom and various other people are fine with me being an atheist so long as I never talk about it.
Yeah.
And yet, constantly, like on Facebook, they'll be posting their religious things and whatnot on Facebook, and it's like, that's totally fine as far as they're concerned, but if I ever like even put a link to a FFRF fundraiser or something like that, suddenly, how dare you start pushing atheism?
Yeah, people, I just unfollow people, whether they're family members or people from high school. And if they really want to contact me, they can DM me. And I would
Right.
expect that this is just normal behavior on Facebook. If my social, my DSA stuff or the atheist stuff or the comedy stuff, they don't like, they're just going to not follow me or unfriend me. And that's okay. I'm okay with all of those things. What I'm not okay with is telling people that I should censor myself, that I should be silencing myself, because that's not going to work. That's not going to happen.
So
I want to say
just
something to the angry atheist thing. Like, I think there's a really big spectrum that everybody really falls under. And, like, I can't really say that I hadn't a really angry, like, I wasn't angry towards other people because of atheism. I didn't feel lied to. Like, there's definitely a big spectrum, like, that people, we're not all just going, if you learn, if you start thinking that God is less likely to be real, it doesn't ultimately mean you're just going to be angry with the world.
What I've observed is if you were hot as a Christian or as a theist in general, right, whatever brand of theism you're in, if you ran hot, then more than likely you're going to run hot as an atheist too. I ran hot for Jesus when I was a believer, so I run hot now, but I run hot no matter what, to tell you the truth. It's just a stable personality characteristic.
Yeah.
So I realized sitting here while we're talking about this, because I'd never really thought about it. I just assumed what people always say, you're angry because you were lied to or this or that. But one thing I sort of did realize while it was happening, but now that I think about it, is sort of a lot clearer, is there was two parts to my anger. One stuck around and still here, but one part is it was really what I call my purge. That anger was me purging every last bit of it and just hating on it. I had to hate on it, really. Maybe because, like you said, Andy, I'd spent so many years not hating it, loving it, that I needed to hate it. But the part that stayed with me, and what the biggest part of my anger and the burning anger, was the realization of how many people, at least in my opinion, were grifting.
Grifters.
Didn't believe the shit. And all of a sudden the whole religious thing became one big grift in my mind. And so preachers, they could be the nicest, well-meaning. I know ex-preachers like Chris, the pastor, atheist pastor, brilliant bloke. But when he was a pastor, I just
see, and those are the people that it does piss me off, because they're taking advantage of other people. Those fucking snake oil salesmen, all those
the
TV
charlatans.
evangelists.
The charlatans.
Yeah.
Can I just say on the hate thing? Sorry, go ahead, Tobin. Did you have?
No, I finished my thought.
Sorry. On the hate thing, that 420 was just talking about there. By the way, love that hoodie. It looks super comfy.
Very Jedi. Is that your Snuggie or whatever?
This is my hoodie. Yeah.
The hoodie. Very nice.
I just want to say there are times in your life when you become an atheist, but you do those things that are so ingrained in your system. You crawl into bed and something scares you and you think, oh, God will protect me. And then you're like, wait, what? What did I just say? Or you sit down at the table and people start saying grace and you bow your head, close your eyes, fold your hands or whatever, things like that. Or, somebody sneezes and you say, bless you. And you're like, oh, and you catch yourself. And there's just a tiny little snippet of angry at myself for doing that. And those can be like anything in life. It's the little things that can build up on you. And you just have to, you really need people to talk about that tell you, that's normal.
Yeah.
It's so ingrained in who you are from if you're like me, born into the church. My family went to the church for 30 years before I was born.
Yeah.
So, my grandfather spoke at the church. My sister works for the church. Like, it was all church all the time.
Mm.
Right. So, I had to get to the point where I was like, just like Matt says, oh my God. And people say, oh, see, you're worshiping a God. It's like, no, it's just a phrase. And you have to just let that go and not be angry at yourself or anyone else. That's just how the world works.
The interesting thing that I find in life is after like joining atheist conversations and stuff, the different perspectives that people have had outside of religion. Like lots and lots of people talk about how they were really into it and all that stuff. But a person like me who I was never actually a believer per se. I was nominally a member of the church, but I never actually believed any of it. And I left because I realized, wait a minute, you're actually supposed to believe this?
Yeah. The girlfriend, my girlfriend's the same way.
It just didn't occur to me that you're actually supposed to take the stuff they were saying as serious. It was just, yeah, this is what we do on Sunday, and these are stories. Growing up, I was like, on Sundays they have stories around this particular set of characters. Other days of the week we have stories about the little engine that could, or the pokey little puppy, or it was just like, yeah, those are just a different set of characters.
I'm pretty sure most of you have, but are you familiar with the Quiet Gorilla? The guy who was, he's also from British Columbia. What's that?
Oh, maybe I don't know. I'm sorry. What was going on, Dave?
The Quiet Gorilla. He was never theistic at all. He's been an atheist or a non-theist or a nun or whatever you want to call it his entire life. And I've had some very interesting conversations with him, and with a couple other people. One who was who still is, as far as I know, heavily into QAnon. So it is, for me, it's very. I'm a very curious individual, and when I run across people with
does QAnon what?
No, the Quiet Gorilla. No. Different person from a friend of Neil's, actually. Though they're both, I met them both through Neil's channel, but yeah, there's some. You can have some great and interesting conversations, and I find in my case, I have to hold the reins pretty firmly, because I'm so tempted to say, "What the fuck? Are you insane?"
Sorry, everyone. I was listening, Dave, but Dave, I'll get your opinion too. I don't like talking about people when they're not here to talk back, but he is in the chat, so he can respond. But this Gerbot, I asked, is he atheist? Because he's saying very mixed things.
Yeah.
And these last two comments, I'm like, I make these plans to try to contact a God communicatively. I can't tell what the experiences I receive from these activities. I mean, so is he on the fence? Are you on the fence?
I think it boils down to questioning theist, which encompasses most people.
Yeah.
Welcome, Gerbot. Welcome to the dark side, friend.
I was talking to my girlfriend over the weekend, and it was something about religious experiences. Oh, I was talking about Norm Macdonald, actually, the comedian who just died. And Norm Macdonald, in his conversation with Mark Maron, talked about religious experience, through art. So he had this weird psychological state that he couldn't engage with certain types of art because it overwhelmed him, it consumed him, and it possessed him. And it's like, I understand that. That is a religious experience there. It is the feeling of the other impinging upon your consciousness. And a little schizophrenic, definitely, right? A little thought disorder. But I understand that from Noah McDonald, and I understand why he was religious. Because if you're experiencing those feelings, it is very easy to think this is a God impinging itself upon my consciousness. And it's not. It's just, people have weird thoughts. Our brains are weird things, and they're stuck together by Scotch tape and paper clips. And and some people have these experiences and some people don't. My girlfriend looks at me when I'm crazy when I tell her about these things. And it's like, yeah, it's just true.
Well, when you indoctrinate people to believe that things that are going on and happening around them, there was a car accident and 3 people died. It was God's will. There was a hurricane. It was God's will. Oh, I had a crazy thought. It was God's will.
Yeah.
It just falls into place.
There's
right?
music, Andy, that I can hear, and it will literally bring tears to my eyes. Like there's songs I can hear that like will strike an emotional chord, and is that like, and you get that from like visually looking at artwork.
There's sometimes, there's, especially if I know the backstory, there's this great piece at the Museum of Fine Arts. It's by Turner, an English artist, and it's called The Slave Ship. And they have it tucked away in one of the large galleries. And it's like, oh my God, this is, it's because it's about slavery, it's about the transatlantic slave trade, and it isn't just the painting itself, it's the story behind it and the moment in time that it really focused on. And so, I get teary. I actually get a little teary just talking about it, to tell you the truth. It's a very moving piece. But hey, it's been an hour, everyone. I don't know what the fuck we've been doing here for the last hour. We've been talking about kids.
Flu.
Same thing we do every day.
Exploding testicles.
Try to take over the world.
I think
to be fair,
I'm scarred from that one.
It was an exposed testicle, not an exploded
testicle. All right. So
the insides did come outside. I don't know if that technically means explosion. It wasn't an implosion.
I'm going to say goodbye to everyone in the chat. And thanks for observers. Thank you, panel. We're going to do the same crazy thing tomorrow.
Oh.